All right, so anyway, we talked a little bit about this, 1940s. We just had our 50th anniversary, by the way. So we started out with 14.5 acres, got up to about 400 during precinct 4 years, and we're now at about 200 now on this side of the garden. We acquired more land up the road here, relocated our botanic garden nurseries just to make it easier during floods. We wouldn't be recovering the nurseries that much. And likewise, we have our conservation nursery is behind the Botanical Center on higher ground, so we don't need to worry about that. You know, a typical mission for a botanic garden, you know, education for the public and the horticulture industry and for the scientific community. So Mercer became part of the organization called the Center for Plant Conservation. They're having their 40th anniversary this year. And in Texas, we're part of the second one. San Antonio became the first, then us, then Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center, and then Botanical Research Institute of Texas. We also work with Desert Botanic Gardens for Texas cacti, and the Arboretum at Flagstaff for those high altitude plants that we have in Texas. Not here in Houston, not appropriate for maintaining here in Houston, right?
Where is Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center?
You'll have to speak up, I'm sorry.
Where is Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center?
Oh, it's in Austin.
Okay.
A wonderful institution. They serve as our backup for our seed bank that we have of our East Texas seeds, and all of us in the network also back up with the national USDA lab in Fort Collins, Colorado. So there's about 80 of the institutions now in North America, also some related Kew Botanic Gardens in England that are part of the network. We all work together regionally for our species. Now that Botanical Research Institute is on board, Mercer is now focusing more on the Southeast Texas species. So as I explained, the Mercer Botanical Center is in a building across the creek and across the Cypress Creek Bridge. Directly as you cross the bridge, you take the first little tiny road called Titleist Road, and the building's on your left. It's about 5 minutes from here. So we keep all our seed bank, our labs, the reference library, which I'll talk about more, a botanical art collection, and you'll see later when you get up and stretch, we have some examples of the botanical art that's framed. This was part of a project by Robert Vines. He was an avid publisher about flora of Texas, and his next book was going to be about the flora of the Gulf Coast, cultivated and native. So the illustrations you see there that are black and white illustrations are some that he commissioned by local artists in the 70s. One of which, the young lady, most of them were high school students, amazingly gifted people. And she's now a very well-known children's book illustrator. So,
what's his name again?
Pardon me?
His name again? The person who put together the art collections, his name?
Robert Vines. You probably have seen some of his books, Flora of Trees of East Texas. trees of north central Texas, trees, shrubs, and woody vines of the southwest. That's one of his also. Some of his books, actually, I've put in that display case outside. You'll see them. And Carrie Hernandez, my curator partner, today will be helping with the tours. If some of you come over there, you'll see some of the books in person also. So we also maintain our garden sign shop over there. And so if you notice, you walk around Mercer, there's a lot of plant signage. So we first investigate the names of the plants that are acquired by us. And then the signs have, you know, the ranges where they're native to, which is very important for those people interested in gardening with native plants. They can see where those are from. And anyway, you'll see the sign shop today also if you come over. Because of all my experience with hurricanes and flooding here at the Botanic Gardens, we also have a standby generator for the building, hurricane screen in the upstairs of the building, something that during a hurricane preparation, that's the last thing people do is board up windows, and that's where our herbarium is. And then our generator is located above our 500-year flood zone, hopefully. And it worked perfect during Harvey, so. Here's the building during Harvey, the upper left, and the graph about the flooding and showing how Cypress Creek had swollen during that flood. Now, everything is hunky-dory now. The gardens are open again. Our greenhouse and nursery facilities for the garden up the street. So
it took 5 years to restore it?
yes. Actually, this building, due to the fact, if you think about it, Harris County, and we did get some federal money for flood restoration. We're sort of last on the list of who needs to get money for flood reparations. I mean, I believe here in Houston, there's still people that are still, you know, with damaged homes. So that's to be expected. Our gardens, though, we reopened in, yeah, I don't know, I think it was 3 or 4 months or so. Typically, it's a lot sooner, but we had 6 feet of water in this building here. So, okay, so I wanted to mention that we're part of the Native Plant Society of Texas landscape certification program here. We're actually teaching the level 1 class here next Saturday, and I think there are spaces open. If you're interested in that.
It conflicts with this class. I wanted to go to it, but I can't go.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. Some other time. They teach the level 1s all over the Houston area, so you just pick it up.
Some of our classes, you have to have 40 hours of initial training time, and we scheduled the classes so that there are more than enough hours. So we do have to miss a class or 2 here and there, is it okay?
I don't know if they're gonna give me my hours for my first classes, because I didn't get them registered in time.
She'll get it to you.
And
I sent an email, I have heard nothing back.
the MIPSA training qualifies as advanced training hours.
Right.
So it's like an all-day class, you have like 8 hours of advanced training or something, which is a really great way to, you know, check that.
But we can do 2 Zooms too, right? We can do
YouTubes and,
We're discussing hours, by the way.
I would love to.
Okay, So it's been really fun working with that program. It's helping increase our display specimens of Southeast Texas native plants. So that's been a fun program. In October, we're teaching the level 3, and we're now developing the level 2, and then after that, 4. So eventually we'll have all the programs here. So the garden is very popular. It's in the center here of our central gardens. And it's been a pleasure working and managing that garden through the years. So we're also part of international efforts for conservation through the Botanic Gardens Conservation International organization of over 600 member gardens throughout the world, over 100 countries. And we share our database information with these gardens. So it's a good way to trade research materials internationally and mostly nationally in our case. That's been a great asset to us. We even had an interesting invitation to provide a poster to the 2008 Beijing Olympics, and where BGCI had a facility set up about conservation and botanic gardens, and we were one of 80 botanic gardens from 25 countries that were chosen to have a poster. Isn't that correct?
Have a what?
So then again, our good partners, Labor Johnson Wildflower Center, we partnered with them in the early 2000s with the U.S. BLM, or Bureau of Land Management Seeds of Success, and the Millennium Seed Bank Program at the Royal Botanic Gardens, Kew. So we taught over 80 volunteer seed collectors here at Mercer, and ultimately collected over 100 East Texas species for this Millennium Seed Bank. Now, half the specimens are in England and half here in the United States. So it's a great facility if you ever get a chance to go to England to visit. It's
I want to make sure I'm muted.
background shadow, interesting.
Okay, perfect.
So as a participating institution for the CPC, again, we maintain that endangered species and native plant garden, maintain a rare native seed bank. Those are frozen, and for those seeds that cannot tolerate drying and freezing, we keep them in refrigeration. And we also have a conservation nursery behind that Mercer Botanical Center, and the Prairie Preserve, which is a very small preserve. It's about 3.6 acres, close to Willowbrook Mall, of all places, right in the middle of an industrial park. But it was populations of the rare endangered Texas prairie dawn. It's a little tiny composite, yellow composite that blooms in the spring, was found there during their surveys for the expansion of West Greens Road. So you'll see an illustration of that plant in the back on the wall. It's in color by one of our great Texas botanical artists who won an award last year for her portfolio of rare Texas plants. And I love her name, Lotus McElfish.
That's great. What did you say was the name of that, the prairie, the little tiny prairie where?
Oh, yeah, I'll talk more about it, but it's Texas Prairie Dawn. And the scientific name, we'll worry about that later, but also have handouts a little article about Houston camphor daisy and Texas prairie dawn on that little table under by the door. If you want more information. Yes.
Is it open to the public, and what is the name of it?
It's called the Harris County Prairie Dawn Preserve, and it's actually closed, fenced in, because if we didn't have that, we'd have a lot of four-wheelers out there, people camping. There's no one really to, you know, keep an eye on it. So we do offer tours for small groups, you know, 12 people at the most. We actually offered a tour during the last Master Naturalist state meeting, not the last one, but in 22, I believe, yes. So we offered tours of that facility, that preserve, and the gardens and the Botanical Center. It was very popular. It was a great tour. Also have a link on one of the sheets for a video that we made of that entire tour of the preserve, the endangered species and native garden, and the Mercer Botanical Center. You'll find it later. I'll talk about it. So you can just go online. You'll get you know, an hour's worth of advanced training if you watch the video. So you might consider doing that, especially those of you that aren't going to the Mercer Botanical Center today.
What's the video called?
Pardon me?
What is the video called?
What is the video called? You know, I can't remember the name of it because it was, oh, behind the scenes at Mercer Botanic Gardens, I believe. But I have the link for you, so. Good question. So later this May, the wonderful Bob Daly will be giving a presentation to you about Doug Calamy's book series, focusing on why are native plants important? Why should we care about them? So you'll get more information from Bob. I just want to let you know, wild plants constitute the foundation for all other life and represent the genetic gold mine, right? So they're the basis of all our current crops and medicines, and well, many medicines. And they represent living reservoirs of building blocks for future medications, crops, and countless other products. You'll see one of our rare plants today, the Correll's false dragon's head, and LSU's medicinal plant program actually investigated the extract from that plant several years ago and found out that the extracts inhibited certain tumor cell lines of humans. So unfortunately, the money ran out to further investigate that. So they have stockpiled a lot of material that we sent to them for that project. So plant breeders need the genes and the wild crop relatives to develop resistance in crops for new or rapidly evolving pests, tolerance to floods, drought, and frost. So, and again, you've probably heard a lot about the ecoregions and the diversity of Texas and why we have such an amazing diversity of plants here in Texas and diversity of animals. Yes?
When you say develop crops, are you talking like moving genes around? Because a lot of these things are not crossbreed.
Right, they will, in other words, when you're making cultivars.
Right,
Okay.
they're GMOs, right?
Yeah, not necessarily just GMOs, but also just simply developing new cultivars without moving
Yeah,
genes
I mean,
around.
if it's a related species, but
Yes.
if it's unrelated species,
Yes.
we're creating GMOs.
It can be anything, regarding that, depends on the institution that's doing it. Can be as, you know, simply developing a new cultivar, or in some cases, institutions are developing, GMOs.
Moving genes from one group to another.
So, everybody read their chapter in the book, right? About plants? Okay, all right. Well, they mentioned that was, now I can't remember, the one author, but I do know Jason Singhurst very well. And, so they mentioned 5,000 vascular plants in Texas, but if you're including the native ferns and fern relatives and the cone-bearing, the gymnosperms, it's closer to 6,000 plants in Texas. So because of that amazing diversity of geology and climate and soils and just a number of other features, we have an incredible number of you know, butterfly species and bird species just here alone in Texas. You think about it, that may be changing in the future. We may be seeing more tropical species here and less temperate species, but we'll see. Again, ecoregions, you're ready to receive the lecture, but in Houston metro area, we do see these 4 ecoregions in the Houston metro area. So East Texas in a whole has about 3,400 plant species. Threats to native plants, it's pretty obvious. Loss of habitat, habitat, that is. Climate change, over-collecting of certain species, invasive species. Later this, I think also in May, you'll get a wonderful lecture about invasive species. Overgrazing and mining can actually be conducted in a manner so that it does not affect your ecosystem. This image is an image taken of a beautiful pasture at Katy Prairie, and now called the Coastal Prairie Conservancy. Used to be the KPC, Katy Prairie Conservancy. They're a model of the use of grazing to maintain our prairie systems. If you think about it, you know, this area was inhabited by wild bison that migrated through and maintained our prairies, so it's only logical you can use cattle in the same manner. So Mercer works with Parks and Wildlife and other CPC partners for local conservation efforts. Parks and Wildlife, the Nature Conservancy, and other state botanists work annually to monitor populations throughout the state. They develop a list that's available online. I've provided the link there, called the Species of Greatest Conservation Need List. So that one will give you the list of the rarest plants in Texas. We use that list to help us focus on what plants we need to approach and, you know, seed bank and nominate to the Center for Plant Conservation for part of the national collection. So oftentimes you'll see the ranks of these plants. G1 or S1 would indicate a plant where there's less than 6 occurrences in the world, whereas an S1 would be less than 6 occurrences in the state. And then you move up a G2, S2, 6 to 20 occurrences. G3, 21 to 100 occurrences. We work with everything from G3 to G1. Okay, so this shows the distribution of species of greatest conservation need by county in East Texas. And you note how diverse the Big Thicket area is, right? All right, so of those rarest 230 right now, Mercer's working with around 30 of those species, including 7 federally listed endangered. Again, here's a bar graph showing the counties in Texas, in East Texas, that is, showing Jasper County has the most rare plants in it. Interesting. So local Houston metro area species, the Prairie Dawn Preserve, we just spoke about that. Not very glamorous looking, but it's a little prairie, very diverse. We found over 200 plant species on that 3.6 acres and still finding new ones. When we adopted it, the preserve, well, before actually, we had to remove about 40 trees that encroached on the prairie. So that's a before and after shot. This shows where Mercer is at the top. The yellow pin is, originally we called it the Cutton Road Preserve. That's the Prairie Dawn Preserve. So again, here shows the yellow pin where the preserve is. And there's that Willowbrook Mall, 249, 1960, and Cutton Road. So we have some really great volunteers. All of them now are master naturalists. We've converted several that help us with the various needs at the preserve. These are the top 3 species we work with there. Houston camphor daisy. That one I actually need to update. It's a G1 now, S1 in the state. I just noticed that. And then Chloris texensis is probably our Texas windmill grass. It's our second rarest grass in the state behind Texas wild rice. And then the little bitty prairie dawn, Texas prairie dawn down at the bottom. That one's federally listed. The other 2 are not listed yet. So this is an outline of preserve. The yellow outlined areas indicate these interesting areas on that site, and they're saline slick areas. So due to the geology and climate of certain prairies in Texas, we have these saline deposits, soils that most plants cannot tolerate, but little Texas prairie dawn is one of those that can tolerate growing on saline soils. And its associates, that would be the Houston camphor daisy, the Texas windmill grass sort of hugs the outside of those areas. And then another species we work with is the coastal gay feather, also on the periphery of those saline areas. So this preserve is actually a sort of an experiment. We don't know if this will actually work and help maintain those species, because those saline slick areas are maintained based on that unique hydrology at that site. So when the environmental consulting company that developed this plan for the preserve, they took that into consideration. They put in swales and berms to help control the amount of water that was entering as polluted water from the roads, repel those, and then allow drainage of water from the preserve. We've had some issues with erosion, especially in that one yellow outline site that's adjacent to Greens Road there at the bottom. Because think about it, that saline soil, you can't vegetate it. So as we have large amounts of rainfall, especially during our unusual rain events, the seeds are actually washed off that preserve. So we had to go back in and do an interesting restoration a few years ago where we added fill soil along that side, close to where that slick is, and then build it up, revegetate it with native plants that were sourced from the Houston metro area. And then it seems to be working quite well. And then this actually notes a third major slick that we found. Actually, Jason Singhurst found it during the early years when we were setting up the preserve. So progress. So we've done extensive seed banking of these species from the preserve. We're currently hosting researchers from Ohio that are conducting a study on pollination and seed dispersal of Texas prairie dawn. So it's been a pleasure working with them the last couple of years. Going out at the preserve, setting up traps for insects and cameras for monitoring and conducting seed dispersal. They're also doing genetic studies of the various populations in Texas to see how closely related these populations are. And that will help direct how we do future seed banking and how we use these seeds for restoration for that species. We're also working with the East Texas Bee Grant. So this site, along with the Endangered Species and Native Garden, and then one of our experimental sites for one of the rare hibiscus is being used for that East Texas Bee Survey Grant. We partner with Sam Houston State University for that. On the bottom right, that shows our monitoring of this tiny little Hymenopsis texana, Texas prairie dawn. So that shows us going across some of those slick areas. You'll notice the sort of the whitish soil background behind us. And then some of our master naturalists working on cleaning seeds. And here's again, we also maintain permanent plots at the site. So we can see the change in the composition of the vegetation of those permanent plots, whether it be by natural changes or changes due to the fact that the hydrology is being altered. Again, a lot of work out there with invasive management, you name it, we've got it out there. A few years ago, during the COVID year, our intern developed produced these nice posters that now we're converting from precinct 4 to precinct 3, and hopefully those will be out there soon. And she developed a guide of the grasses at the site. Here's the restoration that we did a few years ago, showing the cracked soil where we had a lot of runoff, and then revegetation along the fence line. Again, all Texas master naturalists that assisted us. Here's a map from a few years ago showing the trends of the blue lines represent water. That hurricane symbol is Harvey, and the other blips or other flood events. And then the other bars represent the temperature. And then the yellow rectangles represent the counts for the Prairie Dawn during certain years. And this spring, we had over 8,808 plants there, which is pretty good. So we're doing pretty good. Annuals about died one year, and we only found 69 plants out there. And I thought, oh God, what have we done? But annual plants are like that. They respond to the current conditions. So, they rebound. There's a seed bank in the soil, and, they tend to use those reserves. So these are other Houston metro areas, plants that we work with. Texas meadow rue. We work with the population down at Willow Park, and maintain other populations in our nursery. Three-flowered Thorobia is another rare saline associate of Texas Prairie Dawn we work with. We also added some more species to the national collection. Giant sharp stem umbrella sedge, the coastal gay feather that I spoke about earlier, branch gay feather, and Yucca cernua, nodding yucca. So work for the big thicket, the piney woods. This slender gay feather is a species that we work with. Here shows us collecting in Angelina National Forest. Here's the Texas trailing phlox of the big thicket. We have a very small display of that, but much more in the nursery. Shows what of 1 year are assisting surveys at the big thicket. So again, all these, there's some Mercer volunteers, Heartwood and Galveston master naturalists assisted with us. Another big thicket species, white firewheel, and long sepal false dragonhead, scarlet catchfly, and then species from special habitats north and east of Houston, post oak savannas, glades, ravines, rock outcrops. The little white bladderpod, today you'll see some of the fruit of those. It's a early spring bloomer, member of the mustard family. There's an image also on the wall, I think, similar image. I think we have the drawing of that one from Lotus over in the Mercer Botanical Center. Texas Golden Glade Cress, another associate of the white bladderpod, also from San Augustine and Sabine counties. Okay. Watch telling me to wake up. Yucca necropina, which is a Glenrose yucca, has now been transferred to the Botanical Research Institute of Texas because it's from that area. But this is interesting how we managed to make a seed collection from there, and involved fencing in some of the plants so the deer couldn't get to them. And success. And our partners there were with the Cross Timbers master naturalists, who did all the seed collections for us and simply mailed the seeds to us, which was a great thing. So large fruited sand verbena occurs in the post oak savannas north of us in these counties. False Navasota false foxglove is another species we work with in Grimes County. Here shows some of our native plant propagation volunteers who also love to get out in the field and help with the seed collections. And Southern Ladies Slipper, we've done some collections of those in Sabine County. All right, and then wetland species that we work with, the Nature's River Rose Mallow. Currently, we're working with 2 experimental sites, one in Montgomery County and one in Harris. And the main threat to this species is interesting. It hybridizes with its other native hibiscus. So in other words, pure stands are difficult to find nowadays. So this talks about our search for experimental sites. The young man that did some of the germination work for this project, Edwin Unzar, he actually won a Kent Cook scholarship that was helped by some of the work that he did at Mercer, and that funded his graduate school. Nice, huh? Another species, Louisiana quillwort. This one only occurs, it doesn't occur in Texas, but since we're the only institution in the area in close to Louisiana, we have adopted work, and we successfully helped with a rescue. Everything was done by FedEx from our partners in Louisiana, and then we FedExed the plants back when they were ready to replant them. And so far it seemed to be successful. Corkwood, which is a very interesting shrub. It has an interesting distribution in Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Missouri, and Texas. Next year, we will be working with seed collections in Texas to support another genetic study that's being conducted at Missouri Botanic Gardens. Then pondberry. This is another species that does not occur in Texas, but we do work with it again because it's a Gulf Coast species, Mississippi and Louisiana, Georgia, Florida. I'm sorry, Arkansas, Missouri, Mississippi, South Carolina, and North Carolina. Then I mentioned the Corellis false dragonhead. We maintain several populations of this plant in the nursery and have some on display in the garden. I mentioned again, LSU Health Sciences have worked with that species and maintain stocks for future studies. This is not very glamorous species in the gentian family, but nevertheless, it's a rare species we work with from East Texas, and did some seed banking a few years ago. This shows how teeny tiny some of the seeds are from that. This is from a collection in Little Thicket Preserve at San Jacinto County. Bog coneflower, another interesting composite from East Texas, wetland species. Rough stem aster, you'll see that one in rosette stage in the garden. Trillium texanum, Texas trillium, we work with it, maintain a seed bank. That is a bank of some of the rhizomes of this plant. And anyway, I love this comment Terry MacArthur made a few years ago, I don't know. Conservation without action is simply conversation. So we get very tired with all the action we do here, but we're doing the best we can. Mercer is a very small institution in that network for the Center for Plant Conservation, probably one of the smallest. Some of these, like Missouri Botanic, Chicago and all, have entire buildings with genetics labs, whatever. So we work as partners. Our material, go to these institutions for that sort of work. So if you'd like to learn more, here's that 90-minute video you asked about. And the full name is Behind the Scenes from Prairie to Mercer Botanic Gardens. And that was from the 2020, and it was actually 2022 that we did the in-person tours for that. So hope you enjoy that. There's no way we could do this work without the help of hundreds of other people, institutions, with our conservation efforts, and volunteers are always important to us, especially some of you extremely field-hardy people that can tolerate the Texas summers. Some of us are getting older now, so I'm reaching out to those of you that can help with some of our field surveys. So again, a plug for Mercer Landscape with Native Plants to Mercer. And how about going to see some of these plants out in the yard? Okay. And then we'll come back and talk about botany.
Before it continues, I wanted to share another opportunity with you that actually relates to plants, so it's very appropriate. I'm Kimberly's part of your training committee. I've met some of you, but maybe not all of you. I also volunteer with the Friends of Lake Livingston group. You can go ahead and promote that. There is an opportunity for you to volunteer with us that's coming up. There's 3 different days, and I want to tell you just a little bit about Friends of Lake Livingston. It's a great way to get a big chunk of volunteer hours if you need that. Friends of Lake Livingston is a organization, it's a collaboration that is making an impact to preserve the reservoir that was created by Lake Livingston when it was dammed up. Typically, reservoirs have a 100-year lifespan. Lake Livingston is kind of approaching its end time. It's more than 70 years old. Go ahead. Next one, Rebecca. So this organization has been around since 2013, and it's a collaboration of different organizations, including Heartwood chapter, the Heartwood Lakes, Texas Master Naturalist chapter, the Master Gardeners. But the purpose is to propagate plants, most often Texas water willows, and plant them in areas to prevent silting, create additional habitat. Go ahead. I'm trying to do this fast so you can get the idea that you can volunteer. So this is some of the organizations that were involved. One of the cool things, next slide, Rebecca, is that schools will come out, the ag classes from 6 different high schools in the Livingston area will come out and spend the day. Volunteers, that's where you come in, help oversee them. They're going to plant these water willows and other beneficial plants into the water. They're going to sample the water for macroinvertebrates to see what's there. There's indicator species saying, is the water quality better or is it not good, what they can do to make an impact. Go ahead. The plants are mostly grown at the Texas Correctional Facility, the Ellis unit. So our Texas Master Naturalists, Scott Ball and Scooter Riley are pictured there. They are going in, they have a program where they work with the inmates who are growing these water willows. So our volunteers will go pick them up, get them to the planting sites, and then the high school students come and have a planting day. So it's this huge collaboration. Go ahead, next one. And there's a few things about why they are water willows, and one more slide. talks about, there's some other plants that get planted as well. It's mostly American water willows that are being propagated. High schools are now propagating water willows also. So not only are the inmates growing them, there are propagation tanks at several of the area high schools. Go ahead. So the idea is to start these starter colonies of the plants along the waterways, and they keep going, and they've been planted since 2013, and there's many colonies that are still going. And next slide. This could be you. We have planting dates. So I have a sign-up sheet that I will start around here. There are 3 different scheduled dates right now, and they are weekdays. So, if you work full time, this is not for you. But May 6th, May 15th, and June 5th. That's a Monday and 2 different Wednesdays. There are groups that are coming, students to come do the planting, and we would love to have you involved if you want to come. So you're not necessarily planting the plants yourselves, but you're overseeing the high school students that are doing that. You might help in that invertebrate study area. You might help them get plants out. You might oversee an area to keep the kids engaged. Sometimes there's fishing techniques and things like that. But my yellow sign-up pad is going around. If you make it all the way back to me, I'll be glad to talk to you. I serve as the volunteer coordinator for Friends of Lake Livingston, and I'm happy to talk with you and answer questions that you may have.
How long is the day, how many hours do we get?
Typically, you're gonna get some drive time there also. Typically, we want you to arrive around 8, students get there around 9, and you're done around noon. Any other questions? All right, thanks for letting me take the time to present about that area. Certainly.
So I believe Preston Bryant spoke to you about taxonomy already, right? Yeah? Very good. So that'll shorten my program today tremendously because I used to have to do all that. So it explained the whys of classification and taxonomy, why it's important, right? Guys? Hey, guys. I'm going to start now. If you can just, no more talking. Thank you. Everybody can hear me now? Okay. So Tristan probably mentioned before, Carl Linnaeus in the 1970s, plants were characterized by their vegetative characters. And obviously that doesn't work out so well because environmentally plants respond to their environment and vegetative characters change according to that. So he proposed using the reproductive parts for classification. All right. So things has become more complicated now that we have the wonders of genetic technology, because now we're finding the true relationships of plants. So names change, families change. Do you notice when you go to the herbarium, those of you, we have our family names on magnets on the cabinets. Because for one thing, family names change. We just remove them, put up a new name for that group, keep the old one, because oftentimes the name will come back, which is interesting. So, but that's, again, thanks to our genetic technology, things that we thought in the past to be related may not actually be related. So pronunciation, okay. I grew up in Huntsville, Alabama, with German parents. So it doesn't matter, just try to pronounce as you wish. If you want guides, there's some wonderful guides to pronunciation now online. You can use those, although, again, depending on your region, where you are, whether you're in England or Texas or Canada, things change. Yes.
So, the scientist who ran the Oregon State University herbarium and taught all of the botany classes.
Yeah.
The systematic botany classes there, he used to say it like you know what you're talking about, and then you say it right.
Yeah, there you go. All right. So now I'm going to rush through a simple and brief summary of the plant kingdom. Okay. We're starting with the simplest organisms, the first to be evolved on Earth. So algae would be that, right? So algae are very important, though. Algae and photosynthetic plankton are responsible for at least 70% of the oxygen produced on Earth. Isn't that cool? And, you know, all the rest is from our photosynthetic bacteria and terrestrial plants. Then they team up with fungi and the organism is called lycos, okay? And then we get to a very interesting group that in general botany classes often are included, the fungi, which fungi are not plants. They don't have cellulose, they have chitin instead in their cell walls and many other differences that make them very unique plants. So fungi are all your wonderful mushrooms and molds and such. Then moving up to the non-vascular spore plants. So what does vascular mean? That means you have cells that are specialized in conducting water and nutrients, right? So in the case of mosses, liverworts, and hornworts, the images show mosses and some liverworts there. They don't have specialized vascular system. They're so small and they don't have true leaves. They don't have true roots or stems. They reproduce by spores. They don't produce seeds. And like all the simple plants, they require water for reproduction. Okay, then you get up to vascular spore plants. Okay, these would be plants such as the whisk ferns, quillworts, horsetails, spike mosses, and then of course our beautiful, lovely ferns. So they all, again, reproduce by spores, no seeds. They require water for reproduction, and again, they do have xylem and phloem, water conducting cells. So here we go. Now we're into the vascular seed-bearing plants as we're moving up in evolution of plants. The seeds in these plants are exposed or considered naked in cones. So gymnosperm is the term that we use for those, which means naked seed. So of course they have true stems, leaves, and roots, reproduced by seeds. They don't have a leafy, fruity tissue around the ovules and no flowers, though also wind pollinated for most. You know, some very rarely do they have insect pollinators. So in that group, we have the conifers like the loblolly pine shown at the bottom right, ginkgos and cycads. You saw all the cycads. Well, you probably saw a few as we were walking around, and others. Then, now we're up into the flowering plants, flowering vascular plants, angiosperms, which again, they're classified into two major groups. So now, it's becoming more popular to break out another group of plants, and that would be the early or basal flowering plants. Things like magnolia trees, whatever. Let's see, magnolias, water lilies, the Dutchman's pipe, all of those are considered basal dicots. And this is a great new book put out by Dr. Van Clay here in Texas about the herbaceous yew dicotyledons and basal dicots of the piney woods area of Texas. So it's a great reference. I've started reading it and it's really nice. He actually has a separate section for those basal dicots, early dicots, from which the monocots and the dicots diverge. Dicots as in the true dicots, dicots. So what is a monocot and a dicot? All right, in monocots, that means mono, one, cotyledon, that means the seed leaf, the cotyledon. They have one seed leaf, and they typically have parallel venation. So if you look at the lilies that were passed out to you, you'll see that those, both the Peruvian lily, the alstroemeria, and the lilies have parallel venation. And the flower parts are in threes. We'll look at that in a minute when we take apart those showy monocots. I'm not going to focus on grasses today, so. Dicots, okay, are a second group or class of flowering plants called dicots because they have two seed leaves, two cotyledons. Their flowers are grouped in twos, fours, and fives, their parts. And if you look at the Ruellia, the little purple blooming plant that you have, you'll notice the net-like venation in those plants. So here's, again, I won't spend a lot of time on this. I'm sure Preston went over this, but I don't know if he's discussed varieties, forms, subspecies, all that. Cultivars. Cultivar is interesting. That indicates a plant that has been cultivated by humans for our purposes. So whenever you see the name cultivar, that is that indicates that.
That means it's not native?
It's based on a native plant, but it's been modified by cultivation by
It's
humans.
GMO then?
No. So starting with the anatomy of flowers, I've chosen a dicot flower here. The calyx is a collective term for those, in the case of the, look at the Ruellia, the green parts at the base of those plants, the flowers that is. And then the corolla refers to the colored part of the petals on the plant. So that's a collective term for petals. Calyx is a collective term for sepals. Tepals is a term used, or the Brits say tepals. If you cannot tell the calyx from the corolla, they all have the same color. And you'll see that in the lilies, right? Okay. Perianthus is a collective term for petals and sepals. Why am I going through this? If you're interested in identifying plants, you have to learn, starting with basic terminology. There are excellent guides out there for botanical terms. Most of the keys or guides for the flora of Texas will have a glossary in the back that defines some, even illustrated, that are absolutely wonderful. This one has a beautiful illustrated
Is he the one
glossary.
who came to our meeting? The author of that?
Pardon me?
The author of that book?
Van Clay, Dr. Van Clay, James Van Clay. Vankley. All right. And then coming to the reproductive parts, very important in identification. The female part, the stigma, composed of the sticky part at the top, the stigma, the style is the stalk, and then the ovary at the lower part where the eggs are, or ovules. Then the stamen is made of a filament, the stalk, and the anther. So you can see those on your flowers. So we'll take apart those in a minute. Then the position of the ovary is very important. We'll look at those as we dissect these today in a few minutes. So a superior ovary is one where the stamens and the petals and the sepal are located below the ovary, okay? In that case, the flower is described as hypogynous, that means below the female, so below the ovary. And the reverse, we'll be looking at some that are where the ovary is inferior. So in that case, those structures are located below the ovary. And in that case, it would be epigynous, or above the female woman, epigynous, epigynous. Okay, and there's the illustrations that makes sense, right? Okay, and that terminology assists with the ID of plants. This flower symmetry and arrangement is very important. Right now, you'll see a lot of the beautiful evening primroses blooming, little pink guys. Very nice radial symmetry shown there, equal. Your lilies are radial. The alstroemeria, the Peruvian lily, and the Ruellia have more of a bilateral symmetry. Also shown on the salvia stuck in the vase there. They're good examples of bilateral symmetry like us. If you were to cut us in half on the outside, we would show bilateral symmetry. Okay, so hands on. Here, you can be careful. These have very sharp things like razor blades and blades in them. And when you put the items back in the case, just kind of wipe them off and take it down also. And then you'll be using loops, and flip it open like this. The trick is you hold it, say if you're looking at your hand, looking at your lip. Put it right on top of the hand and then move it towards your eyes, and you can see the surface of your hand. So remember that when you're looking at the little composite, later on we'll break apart this guy and girl, and we'll look at the parts of it. So
There are more loops, if there's not a loop in front of you, there are more.
Yeah, sure, you can, who needs a loop?
There's some.
Okay, most of you would be working your hair, but you're set. You're cool. Okay. All right, so what we're looking at, the lilies, we have some white ones and some bright orange ones. There are two different types of hybrid oriental lilies, Asiatic lilies, not native, but they're so easy to work with for this demonstration. I chose those. So again, based on the veins, would this be a monocot or a dicot? Parallel veins, right? So it's very, when you're trying to key out plants and you go to a key, it'll typically group the monocots in one section and the dicots in the other. So it's important to learn the differences between the two.
So this is a more.
Yes. So floral morphology. So again, I mentioned the collective term for the corolla is, and the calyx is the perianth, right? So in the case of the lily, do you see anything green above its attachment to its stem or pedicel? No? So in that case, you have tepals, right? Okay, and so you won't be finding any green sepals on this plant. So what I want you to do is now choose one of those, the orange one or the white one, and now just simply pull off those tepals, one after the other, very carefully. And then tell me how many that you have removed. Okay, we don't have all day, folks. Six, very good. So monocots, typically 3s and 6s, right? Right, okay. Good, so we've got that part off. Now next, and by the way, during COVID, this is the presentation I had to create because we couldn't meet in person. So I had to do all the dissections online. Okay. Sure. And what I'd like you to do next is now the male part of the flower. I'd like you to pull the stamens off. Emasculate the flower, please. That means the entire filament and stamen. Pull it off. All of them, and count. Six again. Six again, very good. So you see the very distinct anther and filament on that. Okay, it's now not allowing me to click down for some reason.
Click just push the mouse button like just click anywhere.
Oh, click anywhere, okay, thanks. All right, awesome. All right, then the position of the ovary. You see the swollen column-like structure at the bottom attached to the receptacle. And then the long skinny part, which is the style, and the upper sticky part. It's sticky because that is what adheres to the pollen, right? For pollination. And that material in the stickiness is what chemically triggers the pollen to germinate and produce its pollen tube in some cases, if it's the right species. Although some plants, even if it's the wrong species, it'll produce a pollen tube that grows down, but it never actually releases its sperm cell into the ovary. So anyway, 6. So that's a good indicator of a monoclot again, right? Okay. So looking at the ovary, is it then superior or inferior? Superior, right, because that ovary was above the attachment of the perianth and the stamens. Very good. All right. So now you can take your razor blade and make a cross section. See the bottom right? You're making a little slice like you're slicing a carrot. And you can use your magnifier now and you can look inside, but you can probably see it without a magnifier. So within the ovary, you see those chambers. And those are the locules within the carpels. And how many do you see? 6, right. And then look at the top of your stigma and look down onto it. How many lobes are there? Yeah, look down on top of the stigma, the very top structure. Do I hit admit if somebody wants to be admitted? I did. Hello. If you look at it, the last time I looked at these lilies, and I'm not sure, maybe the orange ones, it's not as visible. How many lobes do you see? 3, right? Okay. So again, another indication of that is a monocot, and the number of lobes or divisions in the top of the stigma usually indicates the number of carpels in that ovary. Carpel indicates how many leaves have fused to make that ovary. Isn't that interesting? So these are all modified leaves, even the style of the stigma, the anthers, the petals, they're all modified leaves. Cool, huh?
So hold on, so that would, if it's monocot, shouldn't be like odd numbers?
Yeah, typically not necessarily, because in dicots, typically 5s, or, well, some cases 4s, some 2s.
What's the small number? 3.
Okay. Would you like to do the Alstroemeria next? Okay. Now I don't have one in front of me, and I don't have a computer guy yet. This one looks like a wasp. Here, catch it. Thank you. All right. Okay, so looking at the symmetry of the, yes. We'll get to that in a minute. We're working on this guy now. Okay, this is, look at your leaves for this. And how many parts of the colored parts do you see on this one? Is it a monocot? Yes. Yes. Okay. Parallel leaves, veins in the leaves. All right. Now, pull off the tepals. I would call them tepals because they're colored. Pull them off one at a time and count. So those outer ones were actually modified sepals. Interesting, right? The inner ones are the petals. It's so nice to see people excited about flowers. Okay. All right. So interesting, isn't it? Now, so everybody? How many tepals do you see? 6. Okay, excellent. Now, notice on this one, the stigma is sticking up above the anthers, right? And it's lobed like little filaments, isn't it? Cool, right? So again, saying that, indicating it has the 3 chambers or carpels inside the ovary. So now pull off the stamens on this one and count. Okay. How many did you get? 6. Okay, and now what's interesting about the alstomeria, look what you're left with. It looks like the ovary is halfway above and more than halfway below the attachment of the stamens and the tepals, right? So it's kind of half inferior. So you're going to see all gradations from inferior to superior in flowers. So anything goes. So it's a nice example of that. And if you want to look down on top of your stigma, again, you'll see 3. Then you can look down on top of the ovary and count the ridges. You have 6, right? And if you want, you can chop that one, make a cross section, look at it that way, if you wish. Okay, everybody has plenty of petunia flowers to work with. We'll look at that next. So these are great little natives, grows very well here. It's in the Acanthus family. And that family is known to be pollinated, especially by hummingbirds. So tubular flowers. So in this case, looking at it, yeah, it kind of looks like bilateral to me, right? You have how many lobes on this flower? 5? I hear somebody say that. And then look at the venation in the leaves. If you look at the bottom side of the leaf or the abaxial surface, you see the netted venation. So that's an indication of a dipod. Very good. All right. So now, go ahead and pull off all the extra buds and things from around the flower that you're looking at. Try not to pull the sepals off. Just pull and you might still have some little flappy bracts around it also. But you should see these really spindly, spiky little pointy sepals around the flower. Okay. So yesterday when I looked at it, I found that it had 5 of these little spindly sepals. Yeah. And it does indeed, so more of the flappy ones at the bottom, the extra brack. Oops, okay. And I'm sure everybody has done the same thing.
What are they called?
That's why I like to give you large flowers. All right, so you're left with a very bumpy, base. And your, corolla tooth has probably come off, right? And you pulled off, if you're me, maybe you're not, and you did it expertly. The best way to do it is to like peel down the, sections of the petals. The, divisions of the petals.
I think that sounds amazing.
Oh, yeah. And you'll notice something that's very interesting. In this case, the stamens are actually attached to that corolla tube, aren't they? Okay? So, but you can see that little spindly, stigma in the center, and it has how many little lobes on the stigma? Look like. Yeah, on mine it's 2, but then I probably handled mine really carefully. So, anybody have more than 2 on the tip of the stigma? 2? Oh, yes.
So why not have two?
Yeah, that's like something else. Now, how many stamens do you see around the stick? No. 5. Very good. So, 5. Okay. So, think about this. I was a really bad dissector on the flower. I pulled off the perianth and the poor style of the stigma and the anther. So you're left with the ovary at the bottom. I'll give you a hint. All of that was attached below the ovary. So this was a superior flower. Okay? So you have to be very careful when you're dissecting smaller flowers like this. If you have the use of dissecting soap, that helps. Or just using your loop, you can do it. You're just careful and cut very careful.
I think I'm a little bit lost in one or two steps behind with, which one of the rumelia? Yes.
Okay.
The lobes are the.
Okay. Where is it in the tank? Well. Okay. So look at the lobes now. They're all the perianth is the corolla is connected. And the petals and the corolla are connected. They're fused together. Another word is combined. Okay. They're fused. But you have 5 lobes on that corolla. And the sepals are the long, thin, things below on the outside. Got that? Okay. So we attempted all the extra stuff around. See their other buds. And I'm taking some rack off. And there's 5. So that's another detail. A diagonal. And 5 logos on the road. So then, see the statement for yeah, and then the statements on the mail. You see the attachments to the.
I saw it.
All from that.
Steamboat, right?
And then when that falls down.
There's several types of
Yeah.
I post little things with.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And she says. So you see how that's sending
Alright, so now I'll give you even more of a challenge. Let's take. So are we looking at one flower here? And a composite? This one flower? It's in this flower, and I'll talk more about like the inflorescences. That means the arrangement and type of flowers, individual flowers on a plant, okay, on a herbaceous plant. So on this one, in the aster family, the sunflower family, also called the composite family, the inflorescence is a head, all right? And the head is composed of the ray flowers, which are the yellow flaps. So each one of those yellow flaps indicates one ray flower, okay? And then all the bumpy brown ones in the middle are, each individual one is a disc flower. So you have hundreds of flowers. Okay? So to look at those, well, let me go through my PowerPoint in case I've forgotten to mention. Okay. All right. So flowers in the sunflower family range in heads composed of ray and disc flowers. Ah, very good. Now, you have a handout for the morphology of composites, right? Yeah. A separate handout. Ta-da! Let me hold it up so you know. This one. Okay? Got it? Okay, look at the top picture. Does that help orient you? Yes. Okay, so what I want you to do is you can either just use your fingers and split this head in half, trying to get it, right above the stalk of the flower. Or you can use the razor blade or scissors. Doesn't matter. Okay. What this is one of the cone flowers. It's the rudbeckia, the cone flower. It's native. It's triloba. It's not very common in Texas. It's not very common at all, and it's sort of in the northeast region of Texas. This is actually a cultivar. So, and we have these growing in front of the botanical center. So if you look at this compared to your diagram, and you see where the receptacle is, that's the funky part in the center to which all the flowers are attached to, the green part, okay? And then in between the individual little flowers, and this is diagnostic, you'll find, depends on the flower, little extra flats of material called chaff, and that helps kind of space out the flowers and the head a little bit. And then it has, the receptacle itself has special green bracts on it. They're called involucral bracts. And those are also diagnostic when you're heating out composite flowers. So then what I'd like you to attempt to do is see if you can break off one of the individual ray flowers. All right. And depending on the species, the genus, I managed to do it. The ray flower can be form seeds as well as the disc flowers. So some cases, composites family have ray flowers. Some composites only have disc flowers. Some have a mixture, and when they do, sometimes the ray flowers never become fertilized. Okay. So now try to look at some of the disc flowers. Pretty amazing, isn't it? All right. So they sort of look like those line drawings, right? On the diagram. Okay. So what's interesting there is on the disc flower, the little corolla, and this is a diagram, right? Okay. If you were to count little tips on the corolla, you would see 5 on this one. And then notice on the picture, on the diagram, it shows 2 little flaps below the corolla tube on the disc flower. Above the bump, that represents the ovary. Okay? So
You're talking about this?
the disc flower has these 2 little flaps. I don't know whether yours does or not. See what it looks like with your loop. Those are actually the reduced sepals of that flower. Isn't that cool? And sometimes those sepals will be long, filamentous hairs. Sometimes they'll, barely be little scales. And if they have those long filamentous hairs, those are the ones that are reversed on the wind, like dandelions. Those little hairs are the little sepals from around the flower. Now, looking at that again, if that ovary, it's a single ovary, Is that inferior or superior? It's inferior, right? Yeah. Okay, so that's an example of inferior ovary. And the composites have inferior ovaries. So isn't that cool? All right. So, any questions about that? And maybe be lucky to see that your stigmas might have two little flaps on top. Okay, and the stamens typically make a tube around that stigma called the staminal or stamen tube. Okay. All right, so here, more about those. The pappus is another word for the reduced sepals in a composite flower. Okay. So this example that I used for this was a larger common sunflower. Okay. So what about some other fruit types? So in this example from this Rebecca, it's a dry fruit from one ovary, right? In this case, it's called a cypsela. That's the type of fruit now for a composite. Example of a simple fruit that's fleshy is a grape, right? All right, then in some cases you'll have one flower, but it has many pistils. And that's often the case in, say, the rose family. And so each of those pistils will then, once they're fertilized, form their own little fruit that are all connected together, as in, say, a blackberry is a good example, right? All right, then you have a situation where you have many flowers, and each flower has many pistils, and they all fuse together. An example of that would be a mulberry fruit or a pineapple. So very different looking fruits, but they're produced by the fusion of many flowers together. So then we have other special fruit types. I've picked out some native plants here to use examples. The wax myrtle, that type of fruit type is a drupe, a fleshy fruit with a stony seed in it. A very simple example of a drupe is a peach. Very simple, you know, big fleshy fruit, single stony seed in the center. The euonymus or strawberry bush, beautiful plant when it's in fruit. It's an example of a capsule. So capsule, you'll see there, has split along seams to present the showy seeds inside. Other examples are like a cotton boll. If you're from Alabama, you know all about that. Okra ponds also. Those are examples of capsules. Hibiscus. Think about the hibiscus image I showed you, shows a capsule. Then another interesting fruit type is a pome, P-O-M-E. If you look at our parsley hawthorn, in fact, there should be fruits developing right now. They'll be green. There's one next to the upper pond in the ES and native garden. It's a fleshy fruit. enclosed by accessory fleshy tissue that's formed from the base of the flower. So where the flower attaches is the receptacle, right? So in that case, that receptacle actually grows up and around the ovary, forming that fleshy fruit. A great example is an apple. That's the same situation. Okay? All right, now vegetative features are very important. And of course, logically, the bud at the tip of the stem is a terminal bud. Then each of the leaves, if you look in the upper axil, that's where it connects to the stem, it'll have a bud, and that's called an axillary bud. And shown there are leaf blades, and the part of the stem where the leaves attach is called the node, and the part of the stem between the leaves is called the internode. All right, and you know, petiole is the stalk fruit. All right. So here's some examples of arrangement of leaves in this Virginia sweet spire on the left. Look at the way the leaves attach to the the stem, and that's in an alternate fashion. And one thing I wanted to bring up to you is that we will be getting a second screen, or possibly pull down screen like we used to have. That's a heck of a lot easier to see. So forgive me, it's coming, okay? So the other example next to it, the St. John's wort family, the Hypericaceae, shows opposite leaves. So there are two leaves attached at one node, opposite one another. Okay? Then types of leaves. Okay, looking at that Virginia sweet spire, it has very simple leaves. There are no lobes on them, right? The smooth sumac, which we also saw in the garden today, has pinnately compound leaves. So you see the petiole, the long reddish petiole, and it has many leaflets attached to it in a pinnate fashion, like a feather, right? Then the red buckeye, you look at the leaves there, they're arranged like the fingers on your palm. So they're called a palmate leaf. If you followed the stem of that palmate leaf down, you'd see where it attaches to the branch or the other larger stem, you'll find an axillary bud. So that indicates that is the leaf. Likewise, on the smooth sumac with the pinnate leaves, if you look at the little individual leaflets, they won't have axillary buds. But if you follow that petiole down where it attaches to the stem, you'll see that axillary bud. That's very important when you're trying to ID a plant. Trying to figure out, oh, are those simple leaves on the smooth sumac? No, those are leaflets, and they're compound leaves, okay? All right, on the external stem anatomy, very important if you're doing winter IDs. The terminal winter bud is shown there. The little dots on the drawing there represent holes in the bark of that stem called lenticels to allow gas exchange. Then you'll see the little axillary buds above the leaf spars, right? See those? And those leaf spars are attached at the node, right? So were those leaves alternate or were they opposite? Opposite, right? Because you have two leaf spars at one node. There are leaves that are also attached in a whorled fashion. In other words, there'll be more than two leaves at one node, and that's called whorled. Okay. Inner node, and then below it, and this is really cool, if you walk around later sometime, look at maybe the red buckeye again out there. It's very easy to see the bud scale scars. They look like big wrinkles right above the brown part of the stem, and the new growth is the green part above that. So the wrinkles represents the end of last year's growth, and the green represents the new growth for the year. Okay? Yeah.
Did I understand this? So the bud scale spur last year was the terminal bud? Was last year's terminal bud?
Yeah, they're the, I should put a picture on that. These right here.
Oh, but there's the bud.
And that's the axillary bud. Okay. Terminal bud down here. This part would represent last year's growth. This is last year's growth also before the spring starts. And then these buds will emerge and the terminal bud will open. All right. Botanical teas. This is one of my favorites for this region of Texas. Trees, shrubs, and woody vines of East Texas. You'll see it's the same illustrator as this new book by James Van Clay. That would be Bruce Cunningham. He's a wonderful botanical artist, and he's a forester also. So there are new versions, and you can get those, you know, if you're interested directly. They're a little pricey because they're works of art. They're about $80 a book. The white older edition, very difficult to find and more expensive, but both are great. Did Preston talk about Asian privet and yolk and do a comparison? Great. So I'm going to test you. All right. And you have the sheets. First one,
We do have us to give that one out too.
oh, cool. Okay. That's great. So you see the yolk on. Okay, that's what we're about to talk about.
You said, did somebody tell you about?
Yes, Preston, Ryan, and he spoke about that, right, and using keys. So what I'm holding here is privet, and he probably mentioned, are the leaves, how are they arranged on the stem? Opposite, right, because you can actually see the little tiny axillary buds. This is not a compound leaf, right? Look in the axle and you'll see very minute axillary buds there. Okay. It's and then of course, you know, the yolk is arranged in what fashion? The leaves. Alternate, right. And there's a difference in texture too. Yolk is a little more leathery. It's entire leaf on the privet, right? And on the yopon, has scallop, more of a scallop grenade edge. Now, you notice that the yopon that you have, it's pretty well eaten on, isn't it?
Yeah.
But the privet was pretty clean. So another example, one is exotic, one is native, and one reason we are trying to retain our yopon, get rid of the privet.
So what species would, eat, the yolk in our garden?
It's probably a lot of generalists, caterpillars will feed on them, yeah. And there are, I think specific moths and butterflies that use it, but I don't know them right off. I'd have to look it up. Okay, so lateral buds and the leaf axils. Alternate and opposite. Okay, textures, Chinese privet, Ligustrum cements of the olive family. We do have native privet, but it's a different genus, native privet in the US. Another thing, people make tea out of the leaves of yopon. It's the only caffeinated drink available to us from our native plants in the US. Yerba mate in South America. It's a yopon, not a yopon, it's another holly, a different species. Do not do that with privet because it's actually poisonous. Good reason to know the difference. Okay. Another difference that he mentioned, monoecious, dioecious. Okay. A monoecious means one house. That means both the male and the female flowers are on the same plant. That would be in the case of the privet. Privet, by the way, produces berries, right? Hollies, however, the yopon holly, two houses. They're male hollies and female hollies, right? So that's called two houses, dioecious plant. All right. Are these monocots or dicots?
So, can I ask you a question? The
Yes.
Is in one plant, you can have male and female?
No.
No, there are two different kinds of plants.
All right. Same species, but there will be female plants and male plants.
Do they live together?
Hopefully. Yeah, just,
No, they grow together.
well, they grow in the same forest and their pollen is transferred by insects, right? During pollination. So yeah, you have to have them, I don't know, depends on the plant. Within a mile, I suppose, is the usual typical distance for, bees and other pollinators to carry.
So you said there was another way to distinguish a native versus a non-native. What's that way?
No. Natives, non-natives,
You can't tell the difference.
monoecious, dioecious, you just have to learn your flora for the area.
I think she's talking
Yeah.
about the insect.
No simple way. Come to Mercer and read the signs on the range. Get local flora guides. In fact, I can give you tips if we have time. Looks like we do. Okay, sunflower, monocot, dicot? Dicot, all right.
How can you tell?
Complicated love.
Okay, remember we took apart the Rudbeckia. Rudbeckia is a member of the sunflower family. Okay, look at your Rudbeckia leaves. Netted venation, right? And even if you look at the itty bitty flowers, the disc flowers have little fine tips on the corolla, the tubular corolla, right? Okay. What about the lily? Monocot or dicot? Monocot, all right. All right. See if you were asleep.
Gymnastic.
Gymnosperm or angiosperm? Gymnosperm, right. So if you're interested in volunteering, I've had one person ask me already. Contact Mercer, just call, ask to speak to our volunteer coordinator, or if she's not available, they will take your contact information. We have all kinds of opportunities from garden tours. You can be an ambassador, a docent, outreach for Mercer, host outreach booths. You can work at our pollinator gardens, our wonderful endangered species and native plant garden. Carrie Hernandez and Zoe Matrango work there every Tuesday and Thursday morning. And they love to have help. It's a very highly intensive garden to work with, but you learn a lot about native plants in that garden. Then also we have a wonderful native plant propagation team that works every Wednesday across the creek in our plant propagation center. And they're a wonderful group to work with. We collaborate on sharing material for our display garden. When we have excess plants in our display garden, we pass it on to them, vice versa. You can also, for credit, educate our patrons about native plants at booths during our sales, and volunteer for our Mercer Botanical Center projects. So you can, again, the Mercer Botanical Center has our botany and curator offices. Carrie, Zoe, and I have our offices there. Associated Labs, the sign shop, the library, herbarium, our botanical art collection, conservation nursery, and the seed bank collections. So they're very popular with Heartwood volunteers, including volunteers from other chapters as well. So again, the pollinator gardens and conservation nursery at our botanical center need work. I mean, need help transitioning from, winter to spring, and just general maintenance during the year. Conservation nursery as well. Here's an image of the shade portion of our conservation nursery behind the Mercer Botanical Center. Then volunteer in our botanical reference library. We have a wonderful librarian, a new librarian, Jimmy Fisher Rushing, and she's doing an awesome job. Our former Heartwood master naturalist, Carolyn Langlanay, was a professional librarian as well, and she really launched our library into the right direction, converting it to the Library of Congress system, developed, put the catalog online. So there is the link to our library catalog. So during the week, if you wish to come over and explore any of those items that you see online, give us a call and we'll arrange for you to come in and use them. We have probably one of the best botanical reference libraries in Houston, actually, thanks to the Spring Branch Science Center reference library that we adopted. And then our original library, the fact that we've gotten amazing donations from personal libraries from Dr. Larry Brown, and also from the Peter Raven Library, both his wife and their personal libraries, and then Missouri Botanics Peter Raven Library is sending us duplicates of their texts. So it's a very busy library. We're adding a lot of books and even new ones. We just received new volumes of the Flora of North America. So come visit us. Okay, we're the closest herbarium that documents the flora of the greater Houston area in Southeast Texas. So please come visit and make use of our herbarium. Again, we received that in 2016. By 2020, the volunteers and interns database inventory of all the donated 43,000 mounted specimens. Now we're georeferencing, and we're working on uploading all the data to Symbiota, along with the images of our specimens. And this shows our current volunteer, John Donovan, who's working on imaging all of the Texas and Oklahoma specimens in our collection. That's part of a grant through the National Science Foundation to our herbarium consortium called TORCH, the Texas Oklahoma Regional Consortium of Herbarium. So he's up to cabinet 37 to 43, so he's making quite a bit of progress. So we have lots of work for volunteers and interns, assisting with databasing, georeferencing, entering the barcodes on our herbarium specimen, cataloging them, mounting new specimens. Heartwood volunteer mentors mentor our interns for us. So we're really excited when we have our volunteers out there working with our interns. As you know, Heartwood co-sponsors Mercer's annual intern symposium. Our interns are funded through various private donations. Years back, before Harvey, Harris County offered internships, but that program is not there at present, so we're having to get all our funding through private sources. We're very lucky to have the Native Plant Society of Texas Houston chapter, the Knowles family donations, Center for Plant Conservation, and a local family called the Gibsons, who volunteered here many years ago and have really helped us out quite a bit. So wildflowers do much more than add beauty to the landscape. They help conserve water, reduce mowing costs, provide habitat for birds, butterflies, and other wildlife, protect the soil, and save money on fertilizer and pesticides. That was a statement by Lady Bird, and she also noted that native plants give us a sense of where we are in this great land of ours, right? So, if you want to learn more about East Texas natives, again, I recommend that great book, or at least come take a look at it in our library. There are many wildflower guides out there, either arranged by flower color, plant family, combinations of color and family, bloom time, showy trees and shrubs are often included. This is an example, a classic guide for the Houston metro area, Wildflowers of Houston in Southeast Texas by the Tibetans. Very nice guide. And then this one, Texas Wildflowers by Joe Marcus and Damon Waite. They have revised that original release of Texas Wildflowers by Campbell and Longmire Miller. Another favorite is classic is by Gayada, and I know I'll mispronounce it again. Algiz gift. Wildflowers of the Big Thicket, East Texas and Western Louisiana. It's one of my favorite guides. Unfortunately, Gayada has passed away. The Wildflower of Texas is also a very nice, broad guide for the state of Texas. And then a new guide came out in 2018 by Mike Eason, Wildflowers of Texas, with over 1,200 species. And though both of those are arranged by color and then alphabetically by family within each color. And some guides focus on just specific plant families like the orchids, Orchids of Texas by the Ligios. Great book if you're interested in orchids. This is a wonderful book also, Wildflowers, Trees and Shrubs of Texas by Tull and Miller. It's arranged by color and then has separate sections on vines, trees and shrubs, succulents. Has a handy range maps in it and a tree and shrub section with a dichotomous key. And then another wonderful one by Nealon and Finley. This one has a lot of descriptions that include traditional medicinal uses, food preps, toxicities, forage values, legends and myths. So it's amazing what we have out there for us to learn. So we're doing pretty good. Anybody care to ask any questions? If not, I can go through a quick eye candy review of some of the beautiful natives. Yes.
Okay, so Tristan mentioned that he wanted a dichotomous key for South Texas, so I'm wondering what the name that is, because I've been looking for the.
South Texas, yes.
He said he had one for the north, but he didn't have one for the south, because they're like 100 bucks close.
Okay. In our display case is a volume of the Illustrated Flora of Texas. You probably know the first volume that came out is the North Central. Then the East Texas monocots, the conifers, and the ferns. And then they're working on the dicots, but they do have a Trans-Pecos one that has a number of the South Texas.
They don't have a full
No.
key.
No.
Plants or.
No. And
It
it's,
sounded like,
you know.
It seemed like he said there was one that he wanted, and that's,
Huh,
I've been looking for something like that, and haven't been able to find.
okay. Send me a note, because I'm thinking I have, all I have is like illustrated guides for South Texas, but I don't think there's a complete dichotomous key for that group. Unfortunately, you'd have to pick through Correll or Johnson to get those. Let's see, this date, there we go. So it's in the works. As you know, the Big Brown Bible of Texas Native Plants by Correll and Johnson, this thick, no illustrations, is now being published in an illustrated manner through the Botanical Research Institute of Texas. And that's why I mentioned the Illustrated Flora of North Central, East. Soon they'll be coming out with the dicots for East Texas.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I'm used to things like John's California Flora, which is like.
You'll just have to wait till it comes out. Yeah.
Decades and.
Yeah.
Farmers in Chicago.
Right.
Florida, Pacific Northwest.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Idaho, been out for decades.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to coordinate Texans to get floras out. Does that surprise you? Okay.
I suppose I should not be surprised.
Yeah. All right. So Amaryllis family This is a monocot family, bulb producing, tropical, subtropical, many ornamentals, amaryllis, daffodils, many toxic to humans. Important food crops, onions, chives, right? One of our common spring wildflowers is crow poison. Why it was ever called crow poison, we have no idea, because it's not toxic. So, a great little spring flower. Are daylilies, also in that same family. This is the giant prairie rain lily. Did I say rain lily or daylily?
You said daylily the first.
Excuse me, daylily is a totally different family. It has jumped, since I've been here, jumped around in at least 3 families.
Yeah,
So,
this used to be lily Ailey's.
Right.
Split it in there.
had its own Hemorrhacalidaceae, first Liliaceae, anyway. Arum family, the Araceae, monocots, mostly tropical and subtropical plants. Taro, one of our most hated invasive plants in our area, which is elephant ear, right? Colocasia esculenta. Duckweeds are also in the arum family, our smallest flowering plants. So here's a nice native example, the green dragon, which if you're lucky, you'll see these blooming at Mercer also. The Cyperaceae sedge family, worldwide, of course, monocots, more closely related to rushes than to grasses. The stems have a triangular cross-section. Things like water chestnut and papyrus are important economical members of that family. One of my favorite members is the Cherokee sedge and the white-top sedge. The iris family, monocot, mostly tropical Americas and Africa, many ornamentals. One of my favorites, the blue flag iris. There's some blooming, I think, in the garden right now. The orchid family, considered one of the largest plant families. And in the dicots, typically the sunflower family is considered the largest there. They have dust-like seeds. They require fungal associates in order to obtain nutrients. And vanilla orchid is a nice commercial example of that one. Very difficult to transplant, so we encourage people not to be going around digging up orchids in the wild because of that unique fungal associate that they have. Here's one, crested coral root. If you're lucky, you can see this one in bloom over at Jesse Jones Nature Center in the summer. Spring lady cresses, spiranthes, beautiful plant. The grass family, of course, Poaceae, monocot, large family, usually considered 5th behind the sunflower, orchid, bean, and coffee family. Our cereal grains, of course, are in that group. And bamboos. Here's one that you saw growing today in the garden, the inland sea oaks. Gulf muley, this one's in bloom here in the fall. Water hyacinth family. It's a very small family, tropics, subtropics. One of our worst aquatic weeds is the water hyacinth, native to the Amazon. Okay, and here, this one looks very similar in color to that water hyacinth, but our nice native pickerel weed. All right, now we're getting into dicots. All right, the sumac or cashew family, Anacardiaceae. Many toxic species in that family. Poison ivy, poison sumac, cashews, and mangoes are in that group. So some of you may be irritated to when you eat a cashew or mango due to that, it's chemicals in it. So you saw this one today. Here's one in bloom and in fruit, the smooth sumac. Carrot family, ACE, very large family, has wild carrot, herbs, spices, celery, carrot, parsley, and some highly toxic species, poison hemlock and the water hemlock. So very important to know your ID in the carrot family. Here's a very unusual looking member of the carrot family, rattlesnake master. I love that name.
Where did that come from? Where did that name come from?
Probably just some common folk tale about it being, repelling rattlesnakes or something like that. I've looked it up. I can't find any information about it. So. The dogbane family, Apocynaceae. The ancient Greeks used this family to poison dogs. Isn't that awful? The families worldwide. Milkweeds are in that family. Asclepias. Asclepias used to have its own family, the milkweed family, but now it's been incorporated in the Apocynaceae. So here's one that's actually native here on the property, in the Arboretum part of Mercer. And it grows in the cypress swamp and the hickory bog area. So wander over there occasionally. You'll see them in bloom along the edges of those wetlands.
They're poisonous to the dogs.
Pardon me?
They are poisonous to the dogs.
Apparently some members of the family are. Now, if you know the milkweeds, these produce a milky latex that's very irritating to a lot of animals. That's one reason our monarch butterflies have adapted to feeding on that plant, to use that toxicity to help prevent other animals from eating the monarch butterflies. So they're very tightly associated. This is the only plant, well, other than some others, some of the other native dogbanes, and also some of the exotics. There's a calotropis, a giant milkweed that we also use as a host plant for monarch butterflies.
Does this one need to have its feet wet? Does that species need to have its feet wet? You said that it was over in like the marsh area of the garden.
Yeah, over at, no, we don't allow any seed collection.
No. This particular Asclepias, does it need to have its
Oh, no,
feet wet?
no, it does not.
So,
You see it growing in music prairies.
okay, so.
They don't necessarily have to be in water, but moist soil is required. It's oftentimes you'll see it in, patches of prairies. But here it loves hanging around the swamp
So it's
in a shade area.
not drought tolerant?
No, not drought tolerant at all. Not like, say, Zyzotes milkweed that grows in the clay prairie areas around the Houston metro area. It's very much adapted to dry habitats.
The monarchs
This one
own
isn't.
antler ears, I think that's.
Pardon me?
Do the monarchs actually use the antler ears? Milkweed?
They utilize all the milkweeds as far as I know, yeah. Okay, holly family, the Aquifoliaceae, we talked about that today. Ilex decidua or possum haw is a beautiful one here in the winter. Dwarf yopon is the interesting cultivar of our yopon here. You saw it actually in the native garden in the circular area in the center.
Small hedge that's in that photo.
Yeah, the short hedge, that's all this particular cultivar. It's a male cultivar of yopon. Not a GMO.
Landscapers are.
You could make tea out of it without any.
Really
problem.
easy to get in nurseries is more yopon pollen. Super easy to get your hands on.
Yeah. And then jumping to the sunflower family. Okay. Many ornamentals, as you know, marigolds, calendulas, foods like lettuce, sunflower oil, artichokes, herbal medicines like yarrow, all characterized by having their flowers and heads. Here's a beautiful plains coreopsis, purple coneflower, and here's Echinacea pallida, beautiful plant. Fleabanes, nice little thread-like ray flowers there. The eupatoriums, mist flowers are absolutely among the best for butterflies. The sharp gay feather, all the gay feathers are in the aster family. Okay. Beautiful. Lindheimeri texana, Texas star, right? Brown-eyed Susan, some people call them black-eyed Susans too. Beautiful. Green-headed coneflower is another example we have here at Mercer. Goldenrods. I wanted to point out goldenrods are probably one of our most important pollinator plants, right? And people always think, not you people, you know better. It's allergenic? No. These bloom in the fall and people assume, it's pollen from this plant that is giving you these horrible allergies, but it's instead ragweed, the ambrosia plant. Yeah. Yes.
There's so many different kinds of goldenrod that I think are native to this area. And when we were in the garden, I saw like some little patches of it. And all the native plant groups, they seem to say that it takes over an area. So I wonder if there's a particular couple species that.
Yeah, there's one called the seaside goldenrod. Semper virens is the species name. And it's a kind of cute little well-behaved, shorter goldenrod. Occasionally we'll have it here in the garden. I love the altissima is the one that we see growing around here. Tall, altissima. But it's, you know, if you manage it just by removing the excess, and then what we do is early in the summer, we'll chop it down about a third down, and that'll make it bushier and less likely to flop over. So it's a great plant, though. So cheerful looking.
Which one's the well-behaved one?
Semper virens. SEMPERVIRENS.
I had one altissima pop up in the middle of my monarch, like mostly pollinator garden, and I've never seen more bees on anything last year. It was just like the most popular plant.
Yeah, definitely. So our asters are another example of an excellent nectar and seed plant. These are hosts for the pearl crescent butterfly here. Water leaf family. So dicot, also an interesting American family. The flower stalks are typically coiled up, and that described as scorpioid in morphology. Very simple and alternate leaves. This is a beautiful example of that, the blue water leaf, and later in the summer, you'll see that blooming in our wetland sun bog in that endangered native species garden. Trumpet creeper family, the Bignoniaceae, mostly tropical. Many are woody and many vines. Jacarandas, spathodias, and tabuia are also examples of that family. Here is our wonderful crossvine, beautiful vine. The bellflower family, ornamentals such as campanula, lobelia, platypodon, mostly fused. Corollas, this example, of course, is our cardinal flower. Blooms in the fall, timing perfect for the fall migration of the ruby-throat hummingbird. Honeysuckle family, mostly tubular and bell-shaped, opposite leaves. Here's a beautiful example, our coral honeysuckle. And I'm sure if you're a master naturalist, you'll be fighting the Japanese honeysuckle at some point, removing that invasive. Bittersweet family, mostly tropical, but this is a lovely member of that family, the strawberry bush, native to our area of Texas. Dogwood, remember the cornice test. Worldwide, mostly trees and shrubs, lots of ornamentals. In the display case, when y'all wander out, take a look in there, and it'll have some nice examples of herbarium sheets of those, and illustrated books showing those beautiful flowers. Cyrilla family, small family of the Americas, and many ornamentals. The tie-tie is one example. Cyrilla racemiflora. Heath family, Ericaceae, very popular for ornamentals such as rhododendrons and fruit. I noticed going through the backside of the fern garden, close to where the staff building is, you'll see blueberries starting to form on some of our high bush blueberry bushes. And it looks like they're going to be really nice. I'm sure some birds will really enjoy those. And then unusual members, the Indian pipe, or Monotropa uniflora, is an example of that family. Here is a native member of the Ericaceae. The bean, or Fabaceae family. Worldwide, lots of ornamentals, food, soybeans, peas, peanut, alfalfa, carob. Nice native example of false indigo as an example of that. A great host plant for those butterflies. Sulfurs, cloudy wings, and blues. Redbuds, wonderful member of the bean family.
If you move the mouse down a little bit, I think that.
How do I do this?
Just take the mouse down.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. Sorry about that. Texas bluebonnets, all right. And they're actually a host for the elfin and hair streak butterflies. The St. John's wort family, worldwide, typically opposite leaves, a lot of herbal medicines. This one's St. John's wort. It's a beautiful example. Opposite leaves there shown. Itea family, has a broad distribution, many ornamentals. Itea virginica is a nice example. And here are the leaves in the fall. Mint family, very diverse family, worldwide, lots of ornamentals and culinary herbs. Example, beautyberry, tropical sage, right there. Blue sage, that will be blooming later in the ES and native garden. Salvia lyrata, a very early blooming salvia, makes a very nice ground cover. Bayberry or wax myrtle family. Also important for butterflies and birds. Evening primrose family, worldwide. Fuchsia is an example of an ornamental from that family. Okay. Gara, you'll see that blooming in our garden. If not, I think they started blooming already. Evening primrose, beautiful plant. Okay, the mallow family, important ornamentals, cotton and chocolate. Okay. Turt's tap is another nice example. Hibiscus. Very, on the far right is Daisy calyx, endangered. And then the two on the left, very similar in appearance, are the more common native species. Olive family. Jasmine, ash, forsythia, lilacs, Asian privet. Food, olives, right? All right. Fringe trees, an example. Orobanchaceae, the broomrape family. Our Indian paintbrushes are in that family. They're typically hemiparasitic, which means partly parasitic or totally parasitic. Poppy family?
Anita?
Yes.
Do you mind explaining how they're parasitic?
Parasitic?
Yeah, how are they parasitic?
They're, in the case of paintbrushes, they're very closely associated with grasses. And I think someone mentioned little blue stem was a popular one for it to join up with. It's not essential, but you can, but they do much better if they're growing in association with grasses.
Okay.
Yeah. Prickly poppy. The phlox family, many ornamentals, phloxes. The beautiful Texas Drummond's phlox is used all over the world now as an ornamental. Woodland phlox. Buttercup family. Apolesia, clematis, delphiniums, ranunculus. A very primitive family of plants again. Here's one I love, early spring white flower called the wind flower. Rose family, obviously ornamentals and many fruits. Cherries, peaches, apricots, raspberries, loquat, strawberry, all in the rose family. Parsley hawthorn, rubiaceae, the madder family, quinine, coffee, how about that? Gardenias, pentas, fourth largest family. The beautiful buttonbush is in that family. Soapberry family, worldwide. now includes the maple and the buckeye families. However, now they're shifting again. All right, so here's an example of the red buckeye. Verbena family, ornamentals, lantana is another example. Tubular flowers, this is rose vervain. Phyla, frog fruit is a popular native ground cover. We have a nice example of a huge area that's covered by that in the ES and native garden. Violet family, violas, pansies. Missouri violet is a very common understory herb, spring blooming. And that is it, folks.